Uh, Welcome to this Power BI introduction course. So this is the first session of 3, so it's a 2-hour session. I'll be leading all 3 sessions. I'm Julie Foucault, and I've been enjoying myself with data since 2001. So I graduated with a bachelor's degree, and I've worked as a business analyst in many private organizations. So doing reports, KPI analysis, dashboards, sales forecasts, all kind of things that implied data. My first softwares were Access, Excel, and VBA, which is Visual Basic, to automate the Excel reports, automate the refresh process of my reports. Eventually, I started doing training. I did some management training on the benefits of using dashboards, managing a business with objectives and tracking targets. And then I focused more on technical training, like teaching people how to use the tool. So, and then Power BI was launched on the market. Power BI was launched by Microsoft in 2016. And then I heard of it and I thought this was just an amazing software. So I learned it, I got some certifications, and I launched my own practice about delivering mainly Power BI trainings, but I also do some consulting services where sometimes the customer will ask me to build a report for them, a turnkey solution. So that's me. I'd like to tour the group very quickly because we are very large group, so we don't have time. That will take like a quarter of the session if you each talk 1 minute. So I'll do a pause in my recording. So thank you all of you guys for introducing yourselves. Now I'll take a look about our course outline. So it's 3 sessions of 2 hours. Today's session 1. So we're going to start by exploring the Power BI environment, understanding that new product that Microsoft put out on the market. I've sent you files, so we have a report already built, so we can look at a end result and be simply a report consumer. So understand how I can actually interact with the report. So the whole purpose of Power BI is embracing the digital age and starting to look at reports on screens rather than printing them. And since the report is on a screen, we can make it dynamic and interact with it. So we're gonna touch base on that. And already today, experiment what's the process about building a chart with Power BI. After each session, I'll give you a small take home. This should be a small, like 15-minute activity. And actually, I can even say that maybe if you're still struggling after 30 minutes, maybe you can put it aside and wait for the next session for it to be resolved. But it's really a good learning practice. Hopefully, everything I explained today just seems so clear and easy, but it's always surprising afterwards when you're left alone and try and replicate the steps on your own. Sometimes it's not that easy and that logic. So really trying to touch base in between sessions will be to your own benefit. Session 2 is really gonna be understanding at a deeper level how to build a report with Power BI. So bringing the data and bringing more than one source of data. So working with multiple extract from Outcome Tracker to build a report with many matrix. There's going to be a small take home again. And then session 3, we're going to touch base on more advanced functionalities, taking a look at building like mathematical operations, which are measures, and as you see, groupings, and finding out the whole purpose of Power BI is that you build a report once, and afterwards, to get it updated, you hit refresh, and the report is updated. So no data crunching every month when you want to get an update on a report. Okay, so there's more work at the beginning, but afterwards, you can refresh your report every day and have updated matrix. So that's the plan. What did I send you guys? I sent you a zip folder. So hopefully you all got that zip file of documents. It's a zip folder. It has a little zipper on it. When you right click and do extract, afterwards you get the folder without a zipper. And then you have access to all the documentation that I've prepared for you. So in session 1, there was a handout. So I myself printed myself a copy. It's good for you if you want to take notes on it. And there's also some other files that we'll be using later on. So let's start with taking a look at the handout. So my handout, it's a listing of all the topics that I'll be covering with lots of web links. Power BI, there's loads of documentation online. So this is great, this is terrific, because I just want to point out, after those 6 hours of trainings, you won't be experts in Power BI, okay? You won't gather that whole thing with only a few hours of training. But hopefully, my target is for you guys to be confident beginners, okay? I guess that's a realistic objective. And confident beginners will dare to open the tool, click around, and also search the web when you struggle on something and find solutions on the web. So my handout has lots of useful links, most of them to the official Microsoft documentation. I'll take a glimpse at the chat before I move on. Oh, somebody, Harold, you think you didn't get the file? So maybe Katie can try and resend it. So it was in one of the emails. Oh, you found it. Great. Issue solved. So that being said, I was in the handout, and I'll start discussing Power BI. So Power BI is actually a solution. It's a whole package that's been released by Microsoft. We will focus on only one part of it, but I want you to know that this is a whole thing. So, so just to show you that the handout, if you're looking at it in a digital format, everything underlined is blue is a web link. And I'm actually going to take a look at this first web page, typical workflow. So first link in my handout, what's Power BI? And Power BI is actually mainly 3 components. It's even more than that, but let's try and keep it simple. So the first part is this first box here, and maybe I can zoom on this. So the first box is the Power BI desktop. So you were invited to install this software on your computer. We actually don't say too much the word software anymore. It's an app. So you should have the Power BI desktop app installed on your computer. And this is, I could say, the equivalent to Excel. Okay, it's something you open up on your computer, and in there you'll be working. You'll be creating charts and tables and of data. And afterwards, you can save the file in a folder and then send it to somebody. And the same as with an Excel file, when you share an Excel document, to open it, the person receiving your file, they need to have the Excel software to open it. So if you share a Power BI to anybody, that person will need to have Power BI desktop on their computer to open and view the report. So that's what our training will be focusing on, this part of the equation. And that is free, okay? That's actually for you to just fall in love with the tool, and hopefully, if you're a large organization, you're gonna end up going the whole way to the Power BI service, and then you'll start paying. So that's Microsoft objective. Though, for you guys, which are smaller organizations, like I understand that you don't have a team of 50 directors and multiple departments and divisions. There's not that many benefits of going the paid way with the Power BI service. Power BI service, this is a website. So you go on a website, that's powerbi.com, and if you have a paid account, then you can sign in to your account. You can get a free one to experiment, but the whole point of that is to share the report. So instead of sharing the files with other people, in a large scale organization, it's going to be interesting to share your reports on the Power BI service. And once you upload it there, you tag each report to who is granted access, like who can have access to your report. So is it for my for this division, for my department managers, for my supervisors? So each report you build, you assign it to different people. This way, in a large organization, this becomes your one-stop stop for any matrix and reports in the organization. Also, some organizations, like they need to track numbers. Daily isn't enough. They want to have updates on some matrix hourly. So this becomes all automated and available with the Power BI service. And furthermore, you can guess that if I've uploaded things to the web, well, I can easily look at them on my mobile. So on my phone or on a tablet, I can then look at matrix. I can even get alerts. So like I can set up, if this particular number reach out a value, bing, I want my phone to buzz me until I take action. So those are all bells and whistles that you get once you go with pro licensing on Power BI solution. And then you start using the web interface of Power BI service. But for you guys, I feel that for small organizations, you still gain a lot by using simply the Power BI desktop free portion and building reports that can then be updated automatically. So, so this was to explore for you to know that Power BI is bigger than what we'll be covering in this course. But what we'll be covering, I think, is a good start for your type of organization. And we've discovered that the handout has web links that opens up to different web pages of interesting documentation that you may read some more. You were invited to download the Power BI desktop app. Once you've installed it on your computer, you have either one of those icons. If you have an icon that is outlined in blue, it means that you managed to install it using the Microsoft Store. Having it installed that way, you'll always have the latest version. Power BI is launching new functionalities every month. So you don't need to think about updating your Power BI. It's going to get updated automatically. If you downloaded it by going to the Microsoft website and then executing the download, your icon, when you find it in your home menu, if in your taskbar, your icon is probably like that, only yellow. This one, when you open it, eventually you'll get prompts to update it, and you can do the update if you feel like it or not. All the menus and headings have changed lately. So we should be good of not having all your buttons switched around after each update. I don't know what's with Microsoft, like even our Word or Outlook, they're always changing the buttons, changing them location. Don't know why they would do that. Just before, one last thing I want to point out using the handout, just a little about vocabulary and terminology. Okay. A new word that's very trendy is dashboard. So it's kind of like report, saying I'm doing reports. Like this looks, I don't know, it's not a trendy term anymore, and people use more dashboard. So yes, Power BI, you can do dashboards with Power BI. Okay, I'll be using the word report because that's actually the proper term for Power BI. So to make a comparison, in Excel, when you build one file, so your file, you can give it the title, this is a dashboard, and you create it with Excel. But actually a file in Excel, it's called a workbook. So a workbook, the new term for Power BI is a report. So I'll be referring a lot to a report. This is a Power BI file. And then at the bottom of each file, you could have multiple tabs, sheet 1, sheet 2. That's what we used to have in Excel. So now it's pages. And then for those of you who could do pivot tables in Excel, it's now going to be called matrix. So just new words. I took a minute to mention this information about terminology because there's actually something specific being called dashboard in Power BI, but it is only in the Power BI service. I won't go into details about it because we're not having this course about the Power BI service interface. Though later on in life, when you'll be searching the web for a solution, if you search, I'm struggling in my Power BI dashboard, it's going to take you to documentation that does not relate to you. If you look for dashboards in Power BI, it's going to be about the web interface. When we work at the level of Power BI desktop, your document, your file is a report. Even though when you save it and you send it out to your partners, you call it our stats dashboard. That's just the name you chose to give to it. Okay, enough chit chat about theory. Let's see what this looks like. So if you manage to have my course files, session 1, 2, 3. In the session 1 folder, we have a dashboard, actually. So what I took is a document that was sent out to you probably last year, and it was sent out to you as a PDF file. So just something static that you could print and look at. And it was giving lots of statistics about turnaways, admissions, and different call levels that you have all over the province. So I'm going to use that report, but this time you'll be able to look at it inside the Power BI software. So I invite you to simply double click on the file, which is called Annual Stats Dashboard, and Shelter B. So it's going to seem like we're working with real data, but for this course, what I did is I took outcome tracker extract so that I would have the same structure of reports that you can get from your outcome tracker environment. And I created fictitious data. Okay, so I created the Shelter B, and that's the organization that we'll be looking at through all our sessions. So I'm not working with the data of a real shelter. It's just the data that I created. So here's a report. And maybe at this point, I'm gonna reduce the cameras. And from time to time, I'll go take a look if everything's going fine. I'll take a look at the chat. So I assume, Katie, you're tracking the chat and sending the file to people who are looking to have it. Welcome to Power BI. Oh, maybe I went quickly. I'm so used to that. When you open a file, you have a yellow screen, a yellow square in the middle. Simply click on the X sign. I'm going to redo that. And maybe I'm not getting it because I'm logged in. Yeah. Oh, so I'm not getting it, but you guys are probably getting a yellow square with lots of information. While in the corner, there's a little X, so you can just close it, and then you have access to the report that's standing behind. And actually, when you're gonna get prompts to update your Power BI, it's gonna be in that yellow square that pops up when you open the Power BI. So welcome. Power BI, there's lots of menus everywhere. Okay, there's a menu at the top, so lots of available buttons. That's mainly buttons we'll be using when we are creating reports. So we'll be using lots of those buttons later on today and in the other sessions. I have a menu on the left side, okay, that we'll be exploring, but there's 3 buttons on the left side. And on the right side, so maybe you guys have 3 columns on the left side. So just to have a better view of my report, this white filters menu with the arrow, I can simply collapse it. Okay, so arrows allows you to expand and collapse all the menus. Then I have, we call this panes. So visualizations pane, so this column here on the right. Well, those are all the available charts, like the basic ones that I can start with. And if I'd rather see my data in the shape of a table or a matrix, I can use those rather than having charts. And below, so at top is all the possibilities that I can pick from. And further down is where I'm gonna create and edit each of my charts. Afterwards, we have fields. So this is a listing of the data source that I have imported. Okay. I'll be repeating that and explaining that further as we go along. So just to mention that there's menus all around. When I'm in here, just like when I'm in Excel, if somebody share a report with me, I can edit and transform and maybe screw up the report. Okay, so that being said, navigating in Power BI, you want to avoid the clicking frenzy. Okay, just to give you an example, if I'm bringing my mouse and just without being it on purpose, I just happen to grab a table and move it around, and now it's covering another chart. Okay, so I don't want to be doing that. Somebody shared a report with me and I want to look at it online. But if I'm clicking quickly everywhere, I could end up moving things around, and then I feel lost. So my first button that I want to learn about is the upper left corner, my undo. So obviously, always an important button. So undo, I click this, and now the little table that I had dragged around went back to its original spot. So loving the undo button. Also, everything here is interactive, and that's great. It's going to allow me to interact with my report and maybe find some more insights. But sometimes it can make me feel like I'm feeling lost. So I'm going to bring my mouse over this chart here of number of women admitted. And when I click somewhere, I just randomly click somewhere in that chart, suddenly, it seems that's where I've clicked because it is highlighted. And everything seems like it's been grayed out, okay? So by going on a clicking frenzy, I just happened to click on 2014, the first value. And what's happening to my report? Everything else has been filtered on 2014. You see the tables at the top? There used to be 5 years listed, and I only have 1 left. And same things in the other charts further to the left. Everything is grayed out aside from 2014. So sometimes that's interesting for me to make correlations between my charts. But sometimes it's annoying because maybe I just clicked by mistake and I don't remember where I've clicked. And now some things are grayed out. The chart at the bottom, it's not showing anything anymore. It's showing 1 value. So what do I do when I want to get out of that? Okay, I clicked by mistake, or I wanted to do that click, but then I don't want it anymore. So I'll simply click on something else, somewhere else. And now it's made a selection there, and click 1 more time. Everything is unselected. Okay. So to have, so when I click somewhere, I click on a bar. Everything is, half of my report is grayed out. If I click 1 more time, whoo, it all came back. So that's just reality of the importance if you're clicking, click everywhere. Furthermore, I invite you not to do that because this page is already full. But if you double click somewhere, it creates a window. Ask a question about your data. Okay, I'm going to cover that later on. But careful, really, if you're double clicking, then it adds that pop-up window. And then sometimes getting rid of it can be an issue. But I'll use my undo. So upper left corner, undo. Oh, it did undo my moving, and then undo of adding that bubble of ask a question. So double clicking somewhere in the white of the page is going to generate this pop-up of ask a question. But you can simply do undo. So be careful, click around, because there's the undo button. And furthermore, if you simply close without saving, well, once you reopen the file, it's going to be in its original format. Okay, so those were all the warnings. Now, what about the great stuff? Those charts. So let's take a look at the chart total turnaway. So sometimes if I start using Power BI and we start looking at reports during a meeting, but instead of everybody having a printed copy, we simply look at it on the screen. Maybe I want to bring the attention to my total turnaways. Okay, what I can do when I get close to my chart, in the corner, there's 3 dots that appear. Okay, so when I hover with the mouse, there's now 3 dots that I can get more options, and I can do a spotlight on simply 1 chart. So I still have a sense of the whole page of the report, but as we're discussing, I want to bring the focus on that chart as I'm talking with people in the meeting. And then we're looking at the numbers. So a great way of looking at it in a digital way is that I can see on the graph that for Calgary in 2018, the value is over 7,000. So that's a nice information. If I bring my mouse over the Calgary column for 2018, I get a tooltip. So this black bubble of information that appears is the tooltip. And now it repeats the information that I'm looking at fiscal year 2018 for Calgary. It's over 7,000 turnaway. And great, I have additional information. Out of that 7,000, how many were women and how many were children? So the number of women turned away or children turned away is not being displayed in the chart, but it is additional information that the report creator added so that we can find it when we interact with the chart. If I want to get out of focus mode, I simply click once somewhere in the white of my report, and then my chart isn't in focus mode anymore. What about something here in the middle of the page? That's called a slicer, okay? It's gonna allow you to filter the information being displayed on the page. So let's say I want to compare my 2018 information with 2016. So I see all of that currently, but maybe I would like to see only that information. So it's going to allow me to make it more clear, the differences. So I'm going to bring my mouse over this fiscal year slicer in the middle, and I'm going to select my fiscal year 2018. And now everywhere, there's only the information being displayed about that fiscal year. And now on my keyboard, I invite you to look at the bottom left, and you have the Control key. So when I hold Control key, I can make multiple selections in my slicer. And now this would allow me to have 2016 side by side with 2018 and make a clearer comparison. I'm gonna take a look if I have questions. No questions. Do not hesitate at any moment if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask questions. I make frequent pauses to allow for you to take control of the mic and ask me for any questions. So I can undo my selections in my slicer. So simply by making a selection and undoing it, then I can undo my selections. So that's a way of looking at interacting with your data. Maybe also sometimes I'd like to change the sorting order to put some information, make some information more easy to see, easier to grasp. So let's see here, again, my turnaways, okay? So I'd like to know which year globally for the whole province, when did we have the least turnaways and when did we have the most turnaways? So when I'm close to a chart, again, there's lots of functionalities that appear in the upper right corner. And if I go on the 3 dots, I see that there's sorting options. Okay, so currently, if I hover sort by, I can see that it is sorted by fiscal year. I could see that from the chart. And I see fiscal year in bold. So in the list, if I change it by clicking once on total turnaways, then my years on the axis aren't in chronological order anymore. So I'm seeing that it's in actually globally all over the province. It's in 2016 that we had the last turnaways, and the biggest values were reached in 2018. So I see I've changed the sorting order. So sometimes that's interesting just for me if I'm wondering which year was the biggest, and just by changing the sorting order, I can see that. So I'm going to click back on the 3 dots, and I'm going to change back the sort order to fiscal year. Sorting on tables. So what about that table here? So table has more straightforward. You can see when I'm hovering my column headers, there's a little triangle appearing. We could say even that it's an arrow. So if I click on women capacity turnaways, then I can see for my shelter that it's in 2017 that we had the most turnaway for my women. And when I have tables, I can do multiple sorting. So see here that afterwards I have 38 for the next 2 years. And it's 2014 and 2016. So how about I also sorted descending with children capacity. So now the key that I'll be holding on my computer is now the Shift key. So again, bottom left of my keyboard, I have Shift. And when I hold it down and click on children, my table is a first sort still on the women. And then there's a second sort being done on my children. So interesting functionalities for you to then quickly find information. This is a small table. I could very easily, without changing the sort, I could have very easily see that it was in 2017 that I had the most women turn away because I only have 5 rows to look through. But when you have a bigger stack of information, that can be quite useful. So I'll simply click once on fiscal year, and now my table is sorted again in chronological order. Okay. Additional interesting functionality that I want to show you. So my turn away chart here again. There's actually more than one chart inside this chart. Okay. Let's focus completely on this chart. Okay. So when I'm over a chart, there's this icon just next to the 3 dots in the corner, and it's called focus mode. When I'll click on this, it's going to take me to a single view of my chart. Okay, I'll go back. How do I go back? Upper left corner, I have back to report, and I'll do it again. So on one chart, in the upper right corner, there's this little icon that allows you to go in focus mode. And now I don't see the whole report. I see only one chart. So why did I take you here? Is because I want us to explore the fact that we have arrows. Okay, so this is a chart. The different colors we see at the bottom, the legend. So it's different groupings of your shelters. And then it's grouped by years. So that's the chart we have. How about we explore in the upper right corner using those double parallel arrows. It's going to take us to a next level. So actually my chart, which was out of years, can be transformed and now show me the same data, the same numbers, all my turnaways, but now I see it for my emergency, second stage, and senior shelters. So quite interesting, but yet the people which are reading your report, they need to be aware of those arrows and dare click on it. So if your people looking at the report are less familiar, you can maybe add a small note telling people, look for the arrows in the upper right corner to find out more information or find out another grouping for this chart. Though you need to think of what we're seeing here. So I'm gonna bring the chart back to its initial look. So with the arrow going up, I get back to the original file. What is this chart? This chart is for 5 years. Okay, so I have 5 years of data, 5 years of turnaways. And if I look for Calgary, I have in the 7,000s or 6,000s and 7,000s 5 times. So I probably have like over 30,000. Okay, so over 5 years, all the shelters of Calgary accumulated over 30,000 turnaways. So I'm going to go back to the double arrow. So when I'm looking at this chart, and for emergency shelter, when I see 28,000, well, that's a cumulative value of 5 years. Maybe that's not really a relevant value for us to look at. I mean, it's a big number. It would make a great headline. 28,000 turnaways. We need more funding. But I mean, it's over 5 years. It needs to be put in perspective. So let's go back to this upper right corner. So I'll drill up again. So I'm back to the original format of my chart. And now I'll look into the other drill down arrows. The one that is one arrow splitting in two. And maybe in the current situation, this is more relevant information. So now I can see, so the first 3 groupings, this is all 2014 fiscal year, and I have my 3 shelter types. What about my emergency shelters, second stage, and seniors? And so on for all the fiscal years. So, probably quite relevant information. Then if I go back to my report, upper left corner. So definitely, since we wanted to put lots of information in one page, we could not have that detailed chart here in this page. Okay, we cannot see the full chart. So that's why using an axis hierarchy can be quite interesting and useful. So using the drill up arrow, I'm going to take my chart to its original format. So those are major functionalities about interacting with the report that I wanted to show you guys. There's a second page on this report. Okay, oops, I went quickly there. You see at the bottom, there's different tab. So first the report was about aggregate data, and then there was a second page prepared comparing my shelter with some aggregate average. So I'm not going into the details of explaining the values of this report. It's not about understanding the current dashboard being displayed. It's more about understanding how to navigate in Power BI. So here we see at the bottom something that I've been calling filters. So selections have been pre-made. When I get to this page, it's selected on small towns and emergency. This is because I'm shelter B and I am an emergency shelter in smaller towns grouping. So those selections allow for my charts to compare my matrix with an aggregate of similar shelters, an average for similar center size shelters. So you can see here in light green, those are my values. So let's remember that in 2014, my value was 77. So if I change the selections being made in my slicers, the darker green, we could even say black columns, the values significantly change because I'm now displaying information about Calgary, an average for the Calgary emergency shelters. But you can see here that my 77 for my shelter is still being displayed. So this is again trying to show you how slicers on the page impact the report. So I'm going to click back on smaller town, and now I have the format, the original format. One last thing I want to say is maybe you still want to print. Okay, there's no print button. What you'll need to do is up here, there's the file menu, and you first need to export. So you first export your report as a PDF, and then obviously you can print out the PDF. So unfortunately, the print process is 2 clicks, make it a PDF, and then print it out. Just to, like, in some way, force you to start using the digital format only. I'll take a look for questions. Nothing new in the chat. That's great. Great. One last thing. What about this Let's tour? So now I've mentioned functionalities you'll be using simply to read the report. Reading it in a dynamic way. You can click around and transform a little what you're seeing on the screen. That might, and then it might give you more insight. Let's take a look at how was this built. Okay, to build this report, there was 2 sets of information that was brought in, like detailed information about all the shelters. Okay, so statistics for all the shelters about turnaways, calls, admissions, and information about is this shelter, what type of shelter it is, in which municipality breakdown, all sort of things. So that's data at large that was brought in. And then also a second table was brought in with only data specific to my shelter. So then I can make comparison between the 2. Where can I see that? Okay, let's go take a look. So currently, from the beginning, we've only been in report view. So if I go on the left side, report view, and then I can go to data view. So I can see the source of data underlying the report. So I'm going to click there on the left side. So the first table that I'm seeing, how do I know what I'm looking at? Well, completely on the right side, it says that I'm looking at aggregate stats. So this was actually an Excel file prepared by Janine, which has the information for every fiscal year for every shelter. And having those, we can then make summarizations, doing sum, average, counting of all those information. So since it's grayed out on the right side, I know that I'm currently looking at this table of information. As it was imported, we made sure to delete the column where the name of the shelter was listed. So this way, when we share the report, nobody knows the detailed information is tied to which report. So we can see here on each row, the fiscal year 2000 is listed many times. Each row represents one shelter. And for each shelter, we have loads of information. And at the bottom, I can scroll down and you'll see there's loads of other columns, information about types of women, Aboriginal, abuse, when were they, how many were discharged, like it goes on and on, okay? So that's what I'm seeing here. In Power BI, you gotta start getting used to looking at the information by simply looking at my column headers. Okay, so here, yes, I can see the data, okay? But most of the time when I'll be looking at it, and if I come to the right side and I click on the downward arrow to expand aggregate stats, I now see my column headers. So these are all in alphabetical order. So these are all the columns listed, okay? So just for example, I can see that there's a column named call contacts. If I go in alphabetical order, I can see that column here, call contacts. Okay, I've clicked on it, so now it's highlighted. So working in Power BI to make my reports, I'll be using my column headers. I won't be looking that much at the different cells of data. So this is really a complete switch of mindset with Excel. So most definitely, I need to have a glimpse of my detailed data because sometimes my column headers are not that meaningful to me. So I need to come back to my table and take a look. Oh yeah, okay, call contacts, when I see those values, I guess this means how many calls were made. And then I can relate to those values and I'll be using that to make a chart. So I'm just a first tour and we'll be going through this again many times through all the sessions. So on my right-hand side, I'm gonna collapse. So by clicking on the arrow out here, click and you see all the columns, collapse. And now I see only 3 source of data, 3 Excel files of information were imported in my Power BI. The other one is my shelter specific. So if I click on it, on the right side, I've clicked on shelter specific, and now it's being displayed the same information. We have as many columns, but this is only for my shelter. And I can see that there's data only for 1 year. But each year is listed once. And so just showing you quickly, we also brought something that's called years, and it's simply a list of fiscal years. So we'll be covering this in the next session. Why did I bring that? We'll be explaining that later on. So for now, we wanted to understand that to build this report, we brought in 3 Excel files that had data in it. Now, let's explore further. There's another view on the left side. I can go to model. Woo! What's that? Don't be scared. So I have three things again. Oh, okay. Aggregate stats, shelter specific, and years. So this is simply showing me the 3 Excel files that I imported, but it's showing me my Excel files by showing me the name of the file and then the list of the columns that I have in that file. See, again, I have my call contact column that I could see, my fiscal year column. Okay, so I'm just trying to get you in the mood that working in Power BI, you have data, and we'll be working a lot with outcome tracker extract. So you go to outcome tracker, you get an extract, and now when you'll be working with it in Power BI, what you'll be seeing most of the time is my column titles. Okay, and you can see that everything is tied together. Okay, I have small arrows. So we'll be covering this next session. But everything that I bring in, if I want to put that all in the same chart, I need to tell Power BI how it all relates together. Let's leave this, not to be too overwhelmed, and go back to report view. So on the left side, I click on the first icon, which takes me back to viewing my report. So if I'm simply reading reports, I only stay in that view. When I'll be creating, I might be interested to use my left icons to either see detailed rows of data, and sometimes at the beginning of my process, I'll need to come out here, which we'll explore later. So being in my report, look at my pages. One last thing I want to explore with you is this annoying bubble, ask a question about your data, that's going to appear all the time when you double click. Okay, since my page is already quite full, I'm going to get a third page. So way at the bottom where I have my different pages of my report, this big yellow button, you can guess, it's going to add a new page by simply clicking once on the yellow button. So being here, I'll double click, and then I get this pop-up, ask a question. Okay, what's that? Well, you can see that the data files that were brought in have lots of information, but what was prepared for us was only some information about admissions, turnaways, and call contacts. But when I took a look at my data, I saw that there was a column called Aboriginal women. And that's really a value that triggers me. I want to know how many Aboriginal admission did I get? So that chart was not prepared for me. So Microsoft wants you to use natural language to ask a question. Well, if you use natural language, you rarely get to the result you want. Okay, so it works, but yet it's better if you know what the programmer's natural language was. So I want to know how many Aboriginal women were admitted. So I'm naturally going to ask for total. Okay. So I'm asking, what's my total? And I start and see there's suggestion being given to me. So I start typing Aboriginal, and I haven't completed typing Aboriginal, and it's already giving me suggestions. Will you want information about Aboriginal women admitted from the aggregate table that has all the shelters, or only from the file, the data table that has your shelter specific information. So I'm gonna select that second option. Yes, I wanna know only for my shelter, how many Aboriginal women. So I select that. Ooh, what's that number? I'm not like admitting 2,000 women a year. That can't be right. So actually, maybe that's the issue. I know that this big file contains information since 2000. So I'm gonna add per year. And when I'm starting to type year, it's now giving me different suggestions. So I was using my shelter specific, so let's try that. Oh, so I'm getting a chart. I'm getting closer because now, yeah, having 100 admission a year, that makes more sense. But fiscal year, that's not my fiscal year that I have on the axis. So maybe I'll try using the fiscal years that were coming from, not coming from the shelter specific table. So I'll remove the last part of my natural question. And as I'll type year, I'll rather select the first one. So I have fiscal years, I have my values, but awkwardly, it's not sorted chronologically. So just because I'm so smart, I just happen to get the intuition to type in sorted. And now I have the chart that I wanted to see, and I can see values for the different years of how many Aboriginal women. So how come I can simply type a question and get the information? Is because the files of data that were imported to build this report contain that information. If I type in the question, what's going to be tomorrow's weather, I'm not going to get any results, okay? Because that's not, the weather information is not part of that report. So if ever I like that and I want to save it, using this tiny icon beside the question box, is gonna, it's been now transformed as a chart. It's not a question box anymore, it's a chart in itself. So that's one way to get information about your data. But using the proper tools of building charts is probably better. And that's what we'll learn for the rest of this session. But yet, since every time you double click, you're gonna get this pop-up, I wanted to go through the experience of trying to ask a question and see how user-friendly or not it is to end up with a relevant result. Okay, so that's what I wanted to explore here. No questions were added to the chart. Do not hesitate. If you'd like me to review something else, just unmute yourself and ask. Now, let's create. So what we'll be doing, so that's our target for the remainder of this session. So you don't have that because that's the solution. But if you tag along for the next 45 minutes, you should be able to create this, your first Power BI report. So this is where we're going. I sent you an outcome tracker extract, and it's the report about call contacts. And we're going to use this to make those charts. What should you do now? So if you were riding along with me and you are in Power BI Desktop, simply by going on the File menu, upper left, you can launch a new report. Or if you had not opened your Power BI app yet. At the bottom, either with your start button or in the bar, you can look for your Power BI app and launch it. So either launch the software, or if you were already in it, File, New. This time I got the yellow pop-up. So I didn't get it earlier because I keep opening the dashboard and it didn't give me the pop-up anymore. So when you get this pop-up, simply click the X sign. Might ask you to create an account, sign in. No need to do so. There's a little X in the upper right corner of the yellow square, and just kill it. Okay. A blank report. Okay. First thing first, let's save our work. Okay, and I invite you to do periodic save. Power BI, very strong app, more stable than Excel. It can manage huge sets of data, like trillions of lines of informations. Okay, yet, if you have trillions of lines, I invite you to do a save from time to time. If you have the latest Microsoft Word or Excel, it's now saving for you all the time. It's all auto save. Power BI is not. So save is the first thing we're gonna do. Quite straightforward. Upper left corner, I'm gonna hit save. And I simply invite you to save this file somewhere on your computer. So I called it created during training. So where should we start? Where we have, it's just an empty file. And to build tables or charts, I need to import data files. So again, very different from Excel. In Excel, you can input the data, can manually enter lots of information, and then next to it, do a chart. In Power BI, you can, but you cannot really enter data. Okay, so I should say you could, but this is really not the way to go. The whole point of doing my report in Power BI is that later on, next week, I simply hit refresh, and then the report is refreshed. So if I need to enter manually data, well, it won't be an automatic refresh. So I'm gonna work with my database extract. So you can just stand still for a second. I'm gonna show you that in the documents that I sent you, okay, all those, that zipped folder in session 1, there's gonna be data. And that's what we're gonna be using. So just look at my screen for the moment. I just wanna show you what I've sent. So I've replicated call contact extract from outcome tracker. So what do we have here? So the file that I sent you is really just the same report with the same columns that you'll get if you go to outcome tracker and just generate the report called contacts. So I created it for 3 months. Sorry, I typed Q1, but I know that actually January, February, March is actually your Q4. But just per habit. And then at the end, just for you to confirm again that this is not real data, this is not the data of any existing shelter. I created the data myself, and we are named Shelter B. So we'll be working with that today, okay? So really working with something that would be an extract from an outcome tracker. So hopefully you have it saved somewhere on your computer so we can import that outcome tracker extract in my Power BI report. So where does it start? Well, the most important button, Get Data. So upper left, I'm on the Home ribbon, and there's the button Get Data. So when I click on this arrow, it gives me a list of the most popular one. So I'm not about to import an Excel file, no. Outcome Tracker generates CSV files. So, well, first step, I need to pick the right format. So my export from the database is a CSV file, so that's what I pick. And then it's simply opening for me a browsing, a folder browsing. So I need to browse to session 1, data, and here's my file. So I don't know where you saved it on your computer, but simply browsing your directories, you find this extract that, that I sent you, and that in real life would be something you downloaded from Outcome Tracker. And you hit enter or open. And now it's giving me a sample. And I can validate, oh, I'm about to import the right thing. Okay, so I see again my file title, call contact report. When I downloaded it, that's the name I gave to it. And then I see a little sample of the columns and the rows. So, big yellow button, let's load. So nothing changed on my white canvas, the big white middle area here. This is where I will be building charts. Where's the data? Well, on the left side, let's go take a look at data. There it is. Okay. This is my outcome tracker extract with all the columns it contains. And it's listing values from January to March, because when I generated the extract, that's what I asked for. Okay. What next? See here on the side, if I collapse, there's only one thing listed because I imported only one file of data. Okay, and when I expand, I see all my column headers listed, and that's what I'll be working with. Okay, so before I leave here, if some of you aren't familiar with this outcome tracker report, we can take a look that this is all the calls that we made. So every time we make a call, it is attached to an ID for my customer, the person calling. So I have my system name ID. Maybe I'll use this to count how many calls I've been making. Then I have time information. And something we'll be looking at today also is the length of the call. So I've had lots of calls of 10 minutes. Okay, you see, maybe I was lazy in creating my data. And then I have further values down here. Oh, I wasn't lazy. It's because it's sorted. I have all the 10s first. It is sorted by that column. Don't know why. Anyway, that file, the sorting order of that file won't have any impact on me building my report. So let's go in report view. So on the left side, I click on the report icon and I'm out here. So let's try and build a chart. How do we do this? So I'm gonna select from my visualizations menu here. I'm gonna select a very basic one. So the second one is a stacked column chart. So let's start with this. I wanna start by making a basic chart. How many calls per month do I have? So I select the chart. When my chart is selected, a blank chart is added to my report. Now, when it's selected, there's also new boxes that appeared below. So just so there's less things being displayed. Here, the filters, I'm gonna collapse it, so just that we don't see this. So there's less things to look at. So visualizations. I selected my stacked column. I see that it's selected because it's grayed out. And when I go further down, I see a yellow line here telling me that, oh, I'm in the view where I can add fields. Okay. So what am I going to use on the axis? Legend, values. Okay, we're going to focus on those to start. So axis, I want to know per month. So I'll need some time information on the axis. Very luckily for me, Power BI is quite smart. And the only thing I loaded in my file were dates. But see, on the right side, it generated a downward facing arrow. And when I expand, I see date hierarchy that I can expand also. And now I see that it generated for me, based on dates, it could calculate year, quarter, and month. So beside month, I can simply add a check mark. And Power BI is guessing for me. You probably want to have this on the axis. Okay. So that's great. That's simply by adding a check mark, it put it in the right spot. And then I said earlier that we'd be working with, let's go down in alphabetical order, all the way down to system name ID. Okay, maybe you don't see the full names. If you bring your mouse on this line here, you can stretch the column. Okay, when your mouse cursor is aligned with two arrows, it allows you to stretch the right column so that you can see the full names. So system name ID, I said that I could use that column to count how many calls I got. So again, a simple check mark would work, but also drag and drop. So with my mouse, I click on it, system name ID, and then I go just below values and let it go. And out here, for my chart, it added it to values. So what's happening? Woo! A chart has been created. So months are listed on the axis, and now it's giving me values of around 100 calls per month. Is this the right value? Okay, you don't know, shelter B. You don't know if this value makes sense. Does it make sense? This seems like a little magic. What's happening? So let's validate. So I can estimate here around 300 calls for the 3 months. I'm going to go to data view, and I'm not going to count to see if I really had 300 calls. The nice thing, when I'm data view and I go at the bottom, it's telling me that my report that I brought in, the data source, my database extract, it has 320 rows. So it makes sense. Each row is a call, so my chart, I can feel confident that this is accurate information. That's nice. So let's enhance this chart a little. What can I do with my chart? Well, I'm gonna add a legend. Okay. I'm gonna add to the legend field the different types of requests that I get, the different types of phone calls that we get. If I go completely to the right, okay, my chart is still selected. So here I still have those boxes, axis, legend, values. And now what I'll bring in to legend is gonna be type of requests. So this is the before last column header being listed, type of request. I drag and drop to legend. So this is a little squeeze. I don't see all the information. Notice that when my chart is selected, when I'm working on it, it has a gray line all around it. And there's also thicker spots on that gray line, which will allow me to resize. So by bringing my mouse on the outline of the chart, I can grab it and stretch it in different ways. Moving a chart around, I simply click on it and then drag it around. Remember that I mentioned at the beginning, when I click inside the chart on a column or on a point, a line, everything is getting grayed out except what I've clicked on, okay, because it's making selections. Best practice. When you want to select a chart, always grab it by the title, okay? So I grab it by the title and I can move it around. And it's not disturbing for me that everything is becoming grayed out, okay? Just grab things by the title. Great. So we've created a basic chart. Eventually, you'll want to format. Maybe you don't like those colors. You'd like to see the values. You want to change the axis, the title. Any formatting, it's not happening by clicking on the chart. Okay, you can try and click on it, click on the axis. Nothing's happening. So this is quite different than from Excel. My chart is selected. There's a gray line. I need to go to my visualizations menu on the right side. It's all happening here. Okay, so I can change the shape of my chart by selecting another icon. Here, I've added what are the fields making my chart calculations. And see, there's a paintbrush, okay, a paint roller. When you click on this, it opens up all the possibilities for formatting. And even the title, so go down the list, even my chart title needs to be edited here in this formatting area. So I'll change the title that was generated automatically, and I'll simply say number of calls. And now my title was changed. I can do loads of other transformation. What about data colors? Okay, so further up in the list, I can click on data colors. And now for each of my calls type, I could change the color. So I'll definitely get rid of the orange. Maybe put my others as a gray. Okay. Depending on the types of charts you have, sometimes you can do conditional formatting. And for tables of data also, if it's above a value or below a value, give it a different color. Currently, since we have a legend, we cannot do conditional formatting, but in other type of charts, you'll have the chance to explore that. So I won't go into too much details because there's like good dozens of options, and it's not something anybody knows by heart. So it's just about exploring when you need something. I can just take another glimpse maybe at the x-axis. On my chart, I currently have months. I don't really need to have a title saying that these are months. Okay, so you can see currently on your chart, months is written at the bottom of the x-axis. So I'm going to expand my x-axis formatting menu, and you can see I can change the color, the size, and I go down and title. So I'll put my x-axis title, I put it off. So now on my chart, I simply see the months and not a big word telling me that those are months. So I could go on and on, but I'd rather have us build something else. So let's build another one right away, and let's feel lazy a little. So let's give ourselves a heads up and just copy this one. Okay, so I'll invite you to use the shortcut keys on your computer, Control-C and Control-V. So my chart is selected and I do Control-C. So now it's been copied. I click somewhere else in my report. I've clicked once in the white and I do Control-V. And it just put it above, but I grab it by the title and I can move it beside it or below. Cool. So I have my second chart selected, and now rather than looking at my types of requests, I'd like to see the comparison of who was admitted to a program and who wasn't. So it's going to happen here in my visualizations menu on the right. In the legend, we used to have type of request. So I'm going to get rid of that very easily. There's an X symbol, so simply click on it. There's no legend anymore in my chart. And the first field listed at the top of my list is admitted. Okay, so just experiment for the fun of it. If you only check mark, so smart. It's been added to legend automatically. So what do I get? Not admitted are orange, dark blue admitted, and a pale blue of nothing. Well, actually, when I enter my information in Outcome Tracker, admitted versus not admitted is relevant for my residential admission requests. But for my information calls, I don't tag whether those were admitted or not admitted. It was only information calls, or even my other types of calls. So actually this chart, that's my intent all along. I'd like to see admitted versus not admitted only for my residential requests. So how do I do this? Well, finally, we'll be using this filters menu. Okay, so my chart is selected. Maybe I'll make it smaller and bring it to the top so we can see it as we're working with it. So we're finally going to be using this filters menu. Okay, so my new chart is selected, and again, see 100 calls. So it has all the calls in it. But I'd rather only have my admission requests. So I'm going to apply a filter to it. So here, filters, if I read search, and then filters on this visual. And there's a spot to add another field. So my field, my column, where it has the information about type of requests, I need to bring it here. So I go all the way down to my fields, previous to last. This is my types of requests. And I bring it to this empty spot here to filter on my visual. When I add it, it's expanded already, and it's showing me the possibilities. So if I check mark only my residential admission requests, you saw in the corner that my chart has been filtered. So now my chart is displaying only my admission request. And what if I validate? In January, I got 12 no and 35 admitted. So that's 47 total calls, 35 admitted and 12 not. If I come and take a look at January, purple, those were all my calls for residential admissions. And yes, I had 47 calls. So later on, when I come back to this report and I'm wondering what I'm seeing, maybe number of calls is not a proper title. So I remember where I can do my formatting. It's under the paintbrush. I go there and I'll scroll down to title and maybe add that this is residential admission request number of calls. Voila. Title updated. I'll do a save. Great. We have time for another one. I'll dare you to try and do it on your own. Okay. And then hopefully there's somebody Dareful that can share their screen and show us what you did. So what I'd like you to do now is we saw that there was also another column which was called call length. So I'd like to know per month, what's the average call length that we're getting? So try do this on your own. Click in the white of your canvas to start from scratch. And then you'll want to try and do a line chart for my length of calls per month. And as you try to do so, I'll make sure that everybody can share. I'll give you a minute, try and do it. You all turned off your camera, so I don't know if you're trying. So
I'm trying, but my face is falling. Like, I can't keep up with all of this, to be perfectly honest. Feels like it's a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Remember all the steps of it.
Great. Did someone else manage to build a chart?
I built a chart, but it looks different than yours.
Great. Do you want to try and share it?
Sure.
You should find the green button.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then it gives you lots of options. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it's different numbers. Okay. So our call, you guys know it's not a 5-hour call. And currently the charts you're getting, see your values. So the value axis, you're over 1,000.
Yeah.
So do you want to go in data view?
Okay.
So the length of call column is the fourth one, and it has numbers in it.
Mm-hmm.
So by default, Power BI, when it's a column with numbers, it's first thing it's going to try and do the sum. Because often that's what you want to do, like take it for other type of organizations where they have sales or expenses. When you do your report, you want to add up all your expenses. So each row of expense, you want to add them up. But currently, those values, we don't want to do the sum of it. We wanted to know the average. So I'll take back the screen sharing. Do you want to continue? Yep. And we'll try and resolve. But you're one step away from the proper end result. So building a chart. I clicked in the white. I go to visualizations and I select line chart. So line chart is available on the second row of icons. Once I've generated line chart, once I've selected line chart, if I go down, I have those boxes here. So it's asking me, what do you want on the axis? So here, all my arrows are facing upwards, and I have access to dragging my months on the axis. And what are the values that I want to make some calculation on? Length of call. So actually out here, when I bring length of call, the issue that Harold was having is that it's doing the sum. And out here, not too easy to see, but there's a downward arrow. And when I click on it, it's showing me big green check mark that with the data available in that column to generate the chart, it's going to be adding up values, doing the sum. So I'll change this to average. And now even the name here of value have been changed, stating average of length of call. And we get the proper chart. Did it fix it, Harold?
Yes.
Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. So I agree. This is a lot to sink in. A new environment with menus everywhere, top, right, left. So that's why I strongly encourage you to take a few minutes before the end of the week to try and dip in it one more time, just to have everything sink in. So remember, it all started with get data. And our outcome tracker is generating CSV file types. So that's what we bring in. And then you select your file that you've saved somewhere after you had extracted it from your database. And once it's imported, it's listed on the side, listing my columns. And if I want to take a peek look at it, I go on the right side to data view, and I can see detailed data. Building my chart, it's all happening with visualizations menu. So that was the material I wished to cover for today. In the handout, at the end of it, you have your take home, okay? You'll be invited to attempt and create this chart displayed at the bottom of the take home. To do so, in the files that I've sent you, in session 1, you had data, and under take home, you have a new export of the call contact report, which contains a whole year of data. So try and do it with 12 months. And you'll need to try and do some formatting on your chart. So take a look at the chat. Yes, Zoom video will be available shortly. So I'll send it out to Katie, and then she'll share it with you guys so that you can refer to it tomorrow morning, when first thing first in the morning, you jumped into Power BI. Woo! So thank you. Katie, were you still here with us?
Yes, I'm still here. So yeah, I'll just say thank you very much, Julie. And thank you to everyone else for giving us 2 hours of your afternoon to go through data. Yeah, I will be sending out the link to the video by the end of the day today. So if you want to go through it again, you'll have lots of opportunities. If you do have any questions, you know, write them down, bring them to the next session. You can send them to me ahead of time if you want, and get Julie prepped to answer all your questions that you may run into as you're kind of doing the take-home stuff and exploring some more. And if you have any issues or questions about like the Zoom stuff, or if you're not going to be able to make it, you can connect with me. Okay.
Thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you.